Hi, and welcome to John's Model Kit Review. Today, I'm going to be looking at Tamiya's 1/48 scale Supermarine Spitfire Mk.V Tropical. The kit number is 61035-1800. Prices on this kit vary widely, but it is still available on eBay and other online sources. Aftermarket parts used in this build were decals from Airfix's Spitfire Mk.V, and that's kit number A05125, and the prop on this kit is from a Hasegawa Spitfire Mk.V Tropical, and that is kit number JT5-2200. Spitfire history. The designers of the Supermarine Spitfire created one of the most elegant, best performing, most beloved fighter aircraft of World War II. From its inception, one of the best features of the Spitfire had been its elliptical wing. Based on the same double ellipse planform as the Heinkel HE-70, and I'm waiting for hate mail from all the Anglophiles out there about that comment, and utilizing a NACA airfoil, the Spitfire's wing was elegant and efficient. The Spitfire's elliptical wing had a very strong D-section leading edge and lighter structure behind the leading edge. With regard to performance, the Spitfire's elliptical wing allowed for high speeds, well-balanced handling, and a multiple of armament options. With modification, the wing was able to handle the increased power, performance, and weight of later Spitfire marks. However, with regard to ease of construction, the Spitfire's elliptical wing was a nightmare, requiring many times the man-hours to build compared to the wing of a Bf-109 or Hurricane. Another undesirable feature of the Spitfire's wing was its narrow track landing gear, which resulted in many an accident on takeoff and landing. Another contributing aspect of the Spitfire's success was the use of the Rolls-Royce Merlin liquid-cooled V12. The Merlin was truly a war-winning engine. It was developed to make more and more power as the war progressed. The Spitfire 5B featured in this kit used a Merlin 45 rated at 1,440 horsepower. The Spitfire 5B Trop presented here has a few distinguishing features that made it an interesting aircraft to model. It features the distinctive Vaux tropical air filter, and that's the large scoop under the nose. It has the more blunt-looking de Havilland variable pitch 3-bladed propeller. The combination of prop and filter give this plane a blunt nose tiger shark look that I really like. I also like the non-standard color scheme of dark earth and sea gray over sky. The B wing on this aircraft housed 2 long barrel 20mm cannon and 4 .303 machine guns. This aircraft was operated in Malta in March of 1942. It was flown by Pilot Officer Robert Wendell Buck McNair, DFC, Royal Canadian Air Force. McNair was part of number 249 Gold Coast Squadron of the Royal Air Force. The kit. The copyright date on this kit is 1994. When new, the Tamiya Supermarine Spitfire Mk.V Trop received praise for its ease of construction, great fit, nice clear parts, and engraved surface detail. In fact, it was so easy to build that it was rightly called a shake and bake kit. It also received some criticism for its thick decals, the somewhat hunchback look of the upper rear fuselage, and thick-looking wing root fairings, especially at the rear of the wings where they blend into the fuselage. The clipped wingtips also looked far more rounded than on any actual Spitfire I've seen. To me, the kit-supplied Rotal prop cover also looks somewhat anorexic. It's skinnier than it should look. Color callouts in the instructions were only for Tamiya paints, and additionally, some of the colors needed to be mixed using multiple shades of paint. The kit plastic parts have a shiny surface. They have very fine engraved panel lines and some fine rivet detail. Parts count is low by today's standards. There are two marking options, one for an aircraft with the Vaux filter and one for an aircraft with the Abukir air filter. And I'm not sure if I pronounced that right. Since the Tamiya kit only came with a Rotal propeller, I used the de Havilland prop from a Hasegawa Spitfire Mk.V. The markings came from Airfix's Spitfire Mk.V. Construction. This was a simple build. It is difficult to botch things up if one follows the directions. Instead of a comprehensive build log here, I will touch on a few modifications and additions I made to improve the kit. Before starting assembly, I made a few simple modifications to the kit parts. To correct the upper rear fuselage shape, I took a file and smoothed the upper profile. It should be a straight line from the base of the tail fin all the way to the rear of the cockpit glass. Next, I took the two main landing gear wheels and flat spotted them using a file. This helps the sit of the plane on the finished model. I then drilled out the ends of the cannon barrels with a number 11 X-Acto blade. I also added thin strips of plastic to the seat to represent seat belts. Once the interior was assembled and painted with Polyscale's British Interior Green, I picked out details with varying colors and painted the seatbelts. They really dress up what is visible through the canopy on the completed model. Continuing with construction, I deviated from the instructions by gluing the upper wings to the fuselage halves first to ensure a good wing root fit. The lower wing was added after the fuselage halves were joined. I added the tail planes at this time. Overall fit was great, requiring only minor cleanup. I attached the canopy with white glue and masked it off. Final sanding of seams was completed in preparation for paint. I left the detail parts, landing gear, lights, prop, off until after painting and detailing was complete. Colors and markings. Prior to paint, I appreciated the kit by brushing thin black paint on all the panel lines. Polyscale's Dark Earth, Sea Gray, and Sky acrylics were sprayed with my Badger Anthem dual stage airbrush. I masked between the colors with thinly rolled snakes of kneaded eraser, and it's much like silly putty. I then applied a thick coat of rubber cement over the color I was protecting. This technique is much faster for me than cutting paper or tape masks, and it keeps out the paint better than any method I have previously tried. Once the paint was dry, the rubber cement peeled right off, and I had no ill effects due to the rubber cement reacting with the underlying acrylic paints or peeling them off. Once the base colors were sprayed, I weathered the plane with pastels, applied with a closely cropped paintbrush. Light exhaust staining, oil streaks, and panel line enhancement added to the realism and gave the finish some depth. The weathering was kept to a moderate level to match the reference photos of AB264. I sealed the weathering with several coats of future floor polish in preparation for decals. I used decals from Airfix's Spitfire Mk.V, and that's kit number A05125, for most of the markings. Only the national markings were kit supplied. I used microsol and microset to settle the decals into place, and they behaved wonderfully. Once the decals dried, I gave the plane an airbrushed coat of Polyscale Satin Clear. Final detail painting, weathering, and touch-ups were then completed. The landing gear, lights, prop, and antenna were added at this time. Conclusions. Overall, this is a fun, easy kit that can be turned out well. The surface detail looks great under a coat of paint, and the kit provides a good starting point if one wishes to super detail it. There are a few minor shape issues that I would recommend addressing, namely the upper rear fuselage, skinny rotal prop cover, and clipped wingtips, which I simply avoided. The chunky wing root fairings can't easily be fixed, but thankfully they're not too noticeable. The decals really do need replacing since they are very thick and resistant to setting solution. If you take your time and get these areas right, you will be rewarded with a great model. I thoroughly enjoyed researching, building, and improving this kit. Recommended for modelers with a little experience.